All right, Pippi,
Hey,
welcome back.
thanks for inviting me back.
I didn't
I
know
tried
who.
to dress up a little prettier for you this time.
No, you look great. You look great. I didn't know who would be showing up when we arranged to meet this morning, Sunday morning. I didn't know if you were going to show up as Pippi or John or maybe even Baby.
Well,
You have these multiple personas.
I do. I think it's like a coping skill that I've used. I realize more and more I, as I get older. I just love to delve into a fantasy world. I think it is my way of coping with the bad things that happened to me when I was growing up and
Your
currently.
your one of your partners or your partner, Lady Sham, and that video and those follow-up videos exist only on my subscription channel. So some of the viewers may not know about your other persona as Baby.
Oh, okay. Well,
So and John as well. I think that was also on that channel.
yeah, as
So
far as
so
the street name.
so do you have? Is it Lady Sham told me that you have multiple personality disorder?
I don't. Yeah, I think it's really just something that I use as a tool to detach from my reality and find a new identity. I mean, putting on a costume is like I mean, there are people who do furries. I don't know if you ever heard of them, but they've kind of found a way to sexualize it. But basically, they are dressed up like a mask, like you might see at Six Flags or any of an
Like a
amusement
mascot?
park. Like a mascot, like a person that might be standing outside waving at cars for like a tax accountant or something like
Right.
that. But the first time I ever saw it was up north in San Francisco. It's just all these people. It's like a group of people, and they're all dressed up in these mascot things, and you can't tell what gender you're. I mean, unless the costume is particularly form-fitting or something like that. But it's usually, it's a furry costume. It's usually fluffy, and I mean, I guess it's open for interpretation as far as like. If you want to be Chewbacca or a famous character, but it's a whole big thing. I mean, people spend thousands of dollars on that gear.
And how many different personas do you have? Because I've met Pippi and I've met John and Baby, who doesn't speak.
Yeah, well, I just didn't want to give myself away, I guess. But now the cat's out of the bag, so I just do two. But I like to play dress up, So even though I'm just called Pippi, I might look very go for a very different look, I tend to like the gothic look.
You didn't come in here maliciously trying to trick me.
No,
It was just who you were.
yeah. Well, I know it's probably difficult to understand, but I think what you do is so different. I mean, you talk to people that come from so many different walks of life, and I think we're all very damaged in different ways, just based on the things that I watched. I didn't realize how big your channel was, or how much of a reach it had, and it's really inspiring, because I think there's a lot of people who just go through life unheard and out without even knowing how to advocate for themselves, or even ask for help. And I've been one of those people, and I feel like there's more life behind me now than there is ahead of me, and I want to make whatever's coming be as endurable as possible. I mean, we're collectively, all of us, the human race, are facing maybe even oblivion. I mean, there's so much. It's like it feels like a ticking time bomb. And then coming down to Skid Row here like this, and seeing the people that are just desperate and scrambling, and garbage all over the streets. It's just chaotic, and I just don't want that to be where I can go. And I feel like I'm capable of going there. It just seems that I'm holding on to all these things from people that people inflicted on me when I was, and now they're gone. They're dead. I'm not hearing from them again. Yet they're still impacting me. So that's why I don't want to continue in that direction. And I'm seeking help now. I told you, I'm kind of a chronic kleptomaniac shoplifter, and I got caught recently. And lucky for me, the person who caught me let me go, but with a stern warning. It turned out he is in recovery himself. He's a former convict. The store that I don't know if I should tell you the name of the store. It's a big box store, but they have a program where they hire felons or people who have have a prison record, more or less. So I think they probably get some tax breaks or whatever for doing that. But he was one of these people who'd been a convict, and told me that he was going to let me go this time, but he made me go to his church with him, and they're all a Hispanic congregation, but they speak English. So I went to a apostolic Mexican church with him and listened to. I mean, I've never had a true kind of spiritual belief, but as a child, just because of the abuse I encountered from people that were supposed to be religious leaders and stuff like that. So I've been very reluctant to dive into that world, or to put a lot of faith and trust in it. And who hasn't read all the stories about all the priests molesting the kids? I mean, it's almost synonymous. It's like a joke. But I think everybody has a fundamental need to believe in something bigger, because what else is there? And I feel like that's something that happens as you get older. It just happens naturally. I was just always so jealous of other people, and they look so pretty. They have all the nice clothes and beautiful car. It seems like their lives are wonderful, and it looks like it, but you never know. I mean, then they'll commit suicide or something like that. So I know now that you can't, old cliche, judge a book by its cover. A lot of people put on a show. I put on a show. So I mean, I'm trying to get on the path to getting better. I've told you I'm an alcoholic, and I went to recovery, but it got too religious, frankly. It got to be, I guess I got bored. I think what happened with me, my addictive inclinations, whatever, they may jump around. So say I get alcohol out of the picture somehow, then comes kleptomania, then comes hoarding, then comes overeating. I mean, I get so frustrated with myself, because it's like I don't have an off switch. And some, being a baby, being in drag, that's an off switch in a way. As difficult as it is maybe to understand, but I think everybody has a need for that in some way, and they find it in whatever ways they can. And this is what I found, playing dress up, being in costumes. And
No, it's important, I think, for an addict to have an off switch, because I remember I mentioned this, I think, in one of the other talks. I went to some Gamblers Anonymous meetings in Vegas once, and one of the people in the meeting spoke up and saying, it took me years to realize that I have an on switch, but I don't have an off switch. And that explains gambling so beautifully, and I think it explains a lot of addictions.
So
if you found something, even if it's dressing up like you do, that helps you turn it off, that's a great tool.
Or another thing that people say a lot is one is too many and 1,000 is not enough. Meaning, of course, with alcohol, things might be cute for a minute at 1, maybe 2, 2, 3, and then it just escalates. And the same is true with everything that I do. oh, that cherry pie was good. I'll have another. I'll have a whole pie now. So it's maddening, and I actually got to the point where I was so low, kind of suicidal even, that I've started taking a medication now, and it's only been like a week, and I already feel the difference, because is that like kind of a metaphor of falling down a well or a dark hole? That it's so hard to pull yourself out of that hole. And then, the circumstances that are around you feel like they're closing in sometimes, and you don't have to look far to see the despair in the world, and you can latch onto it. I think it's a kind of an empathy that everybody has. I particularly have it, and I think it bothers it to the point where it's a bother. And I mean, I see people out there on the street. I don't want that life to be mine. I don't want to live that way. But I have to ask myself, how did it happen? What led to that? And what could lead me to that? I don't have a family structure. I don't have a lot of the things that people fall back on.
The abuse that you went through as a child, that was sexual abuse?
Yeah, it was both. Also, verbal too.
And that went on for how long?
Multiple people over multiple years. Actually, there was this one person. I was probably about 13, and the times were so different because we didn't have the kind of information connection that we did. And I feel like he came into town because he was running from another state where he had gotten in trouble, probably. And he was in the church, but he was also a motel manager of a motel, and this was the 80s. So he would show me pornographic videos, which were not as nothing like we have today. I mean, he had a little portable video player, and he would show me pornographic tapes, ask me how did it make me feel, was I aroused, all that sort of stuff, And he would ask me how advanced I was getting sexually, etc. And so that would lead. So I mean, I was aroused by the tapes and all those things. But there was a tremendous amount of shame that came with it. I knew I couldn't talk. He told me I couldn't talk. He was married, had 2 kids, and so that went on for about a year. And I think he had other people, boys probably, that would come. We'd swim at the motel that he managed, and then he just left town. So I think he got out of town before it got too. And he's probably dead by now, because that would have been, 1983. And so I don't know if he ever got caught, but there's just so many predators out there. And I think when it happens to you, you can develop those traits yourself. It's a toxicity that can kind of pass itself down the line or whatever. My dad died young, so I didn't have much of a father figure. My mom was very bitter about her situation in life. I think she didn't want the kids, and my dad's the one who wanted the kids. So not only did he leave her with kids, he left, died, and you can't blame somebody for dying or whatever. But she resented him, I think, because we're Eastern European. I think we're inclined to be pessimistic. So I know. Now that I'm an older age, I would have resented having kids like that. I mean, I think my go-to is resentment, jealousy. That's something that I have had to face with recovery. And
yeah, but back to what you were saying about the predator that you had as a child. I mean, I'm sure something probably happened to him when he was a child.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's possible.
It gets traded down from generation to generation.
And
that's why I think this information
is helpful. If you scratch
helpful.
the surface, you see that. It all comes to bear. Like think about the original sin, or think about all the people who lived and died before we ever were born, and the wars and the violence and just the tumult of life. I think it comes back to us, it cycles back. And that's why it takes a lot of work sometimes to remove yourself from that and to be aware that it's there. I mean, when I start getting my dark depression, all I want to do is sleep. So I have to break that cycle and not isolate. The place where I live, I have to, actually we only have 2 people there. It used to be 3. And I mean, I'm not a caretaker for them, but I'm sort of the house monitor of sorts. So I have to, and one is a very, probably early dementia, elderly woman, and the other is a schizophrenic who is, really an energy vampire. That because she obsesses on she's also hyper religious, to like insane religious, and I don't want to judge anybody for being religious, but this is a kind of a mania, and she'll obsess about something, like people who've been divorced, and she'll probably never see this. I can't, but I think she's just wrestling with her sexual identity, and she's always asking me all these personal questions, and I just say, that's not something that you need to know. But so, I mean, the way the house is divided up in 4 different rooms, and I'm in like the garage area, so I'm a little.
You're older as I am. Do you think that these problems, like what happened to you in your childhood and what's all the mental illness and everything that's going on in our world, do you think it's gotten worse over the years, or we're just more aware of it now?
I think it's definitely gotten worse because, speaking for myself, I think the triggering factors are more evident and prevalent. And, there's studies that are going on now. I mean, the social media world, the inundation that we have with the media in every... your generation would remember, like me. Do you remember when we used pagers? And remember when computer games are like Pac-Man? Like the 80s, it seems like a golden age now, an era of, but by looking at it now, it's like, oh my God, so primitive, the very first Atari or something like that. So I think everything's really escalated. And my mom used to tell me that time moves faster when you get older, and when you're a kid you don't believe it, but it's true. It's 10 years it's like a blink of an eye. And I mean, you think about geological time and how icebergs melt, things like that, but our human lifespans are really, even if we live to be 100, that's not a very long time.
No.
Compared to the forests and the oceans and rock formation, all these things that are there for millennia. But we're a very destructive species.
The Earth would be a whole lot better without us on it.
Yeah, you know what? Maybe that's what's happening. We're the invasive species. We're the fleas that need to be shed because we're out of control. We're doing too much destruction, no respect. I think there's a whole lot of disrespect in general now. You must see it too. I mean, there used to be, I guess the term is social contract or whatever, where just basic human let me walk by and live my life. You walk by, you live your life. But people don't even respect that anymore. They break into your car. They will throw things at you. They could possibly pee on you. I've seen it happen. I had a close call myself. Somebody just like whipped it out, and it's just I don't know. No manners, no respect, or anything. I mean, granted, they're probably intoxicated in some way, but still, it's just like I feel like it just escalates. And then because when you get victimized by that, you inevitably are going to be responding, and so I mean,
Retaliate.
it's like the negative steps perpetuate, and yeah, it just when you're around all these people that are so desperate and clinging and hostile, you're bound to be affected by that. So that's one thing about being out in the desert right now. It's less people.
What's been the best time of your life? When were you happiest?
Probably in my early 20s, because everything was new. I was better looking, in better shape. I didn't have a serious. I mean, I guess the alcohol problem was coming, but I mean, it was probably already there all along. But the way I grew up, I think I just had a lot of fear about. I was already harassed a lot for being a sissy and effeminate, and not really being a typical boy. So I had a lot of guards in place. I didn't want to let my hair down, but when I came to a bigger city, like Atlanta was the closest big city to where I grew up. So that was like La La Land, Kid in a Candy Store. I was young and pretty, and people wanted to have sex with me and buy me drinks, and he'd give me drugs. And I never got super into the drugs. And I've seen so many people who did. And boy, the consequences are not pretty years down the line. I mean, look, I guess we think about rock stars and child stars and people who had a raucous ride to fame, and they crash and burn. But it happens to everybody. So I don't think, well, in my day, I think meth was the most destructive drug there was. And now there's probably something even worse, maybe bath salts or the things that get noticed, when people become a raving lunatic zombie.
Yeah, there'll be something new on the market in the next year or two.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, I think bath salts was the one that I remember the most, about the guy who became sort of he bit off somebody's face in Florida. You remember that? They call him the Miami Cannibal. But I mean, wow, what kind of transition?
If fentanyl doesn't kill off everyone, then
yeah, I mean, it's terrifying. I fear, one of my biggest fears is losing my mind and doing something like that. And that's hopefully that will never be a possibility. I think the worst thing anybody can ever do is sit on it, stew in their juices. Like, you always hear about people, oh, he was a quiet man, then he went and killed he killed a bunch of people out there. A lot of those people, it turns out they're loners, and they have these things that feeding their minds, and I think we see more of that now. I think our culture is set up so, probably made worse, of course, by the COVID regulations, where everything is going online, and you don't physically.
Yeah, but I think a lot of our problems stem from childhood, and the families have broken down from what they were back in the 70s or 60s or 50s.
Yeah.
The families were the framework, the groundwork. The
foundation. The foundation is gone.
The foundation is gone now.
Yeah.
So the kids are being raised, with very few role models, very few.
Even like
parents.
Well, even the school systems are kind of going for an online way of educating people, and I think that lacks so much, because there was a point where AA meetings were being held online, and our recovery meeting, all these self-help meetings, all these things. I guess it's better than nothing, but it still doesn't. Nothing can feel. It's like when somebody takes a video of a live concert. You can see the video, but it's not as if you were there. I mean, the being in the room makes a huge difference, and I think that's detrimental. As somebody who's battled loneliness most of my life, I feel like it leads to a lot of self-harm. And
it's interesting how the abuse that, or the neglect, or whatever we went through as children, that scarred us, so often turns into our sexual, it colors our sexual
Oh
you know,
yeah,
what
of course, like
interests.
people who are into spanking and bondage. And all
Exactly,
that sort of
yeah.
stuff. Oh, totally. People have been talking about that forever, you know. So, but I think the baby thing was something that was maybe too taboo, probably because of the diaper aspect and all that stuff. But it's a role play. I guess if both parties are agreeing to it, if no one's being coerced or
No one's getting hurt.
yeah. I mean, some people would say, why would you want to get spanked? Why would, you know, why? So it's hard to explain to people who don't get it. Or
I think it probably mirrors what you experienced as a child, and you're probably trying to heal that or fix that or relive it.
maybe, yeah, I think you're right. I mean, well, we talked about you and all the people you've talked to, 5,000 or more. I mean, so many of them are sex workers. I bet
Yeah.
they probably all have stories of childhood abuse, maybe all of them.
Almost all.
Yeah, because I've known sex workers too. That were very happy hooker, all that kind of attitude. Like, you know, I'm an empowered woman. It's my body, and why shouldn't? I mean, we're all prostitutes anyway, in one form or another. You know, I can see the reasoning there. It's a transaction, but I think, and that may be fine. But then again, I think we need some real intimacy in our lives, and that's society today does so much to prevent that. Everything is a transactional relationship now. So I'll be your friend if you provide me with something.
Yeah, it seems like just a pure, unconditional, loving relationship is almost
Yeah.
non-existent now.
Yeah, with pets.
Yeah, the way a dog loves its owner
Yeah.
is the way we all should love each other.
Well,
And that seems so
an
like
ideal
impossible for people.
Yeah, I think because of
The dog instantly forgives everything.
Yeah,
Instantly forgives everything.
the survival instinct. There's like the animal world. They
That's why
a
so many
cat's not as
no,
not as loyal.
Cats not quite as so much, but that's why so many people are so attached to their dogs, and they would rather have the relationship with their dog than a human being.
Oh yeah, I mean, look at all these businesses that have sprung, like pet supply stores and stuff like that. I mean, so people spend more on a pet than a child in some instances, I bet. And it's just,
The dog knows how to love.
yeah. Well, I mean, dealing with people is very confusing. I don't know if you have children or anything like that, but I mean, I think about the mistakes that were made when I was growing up. But then I'm able to forgive a lot of that because what would I have done? What would I have done differently? I mean, I am a product of the world I came from. I believe we do inherit our personality traits from our parents. Even people that have been adopted, they still have a lot of the same personality traits. And I know that for a fact because the girl I mentioned earlier, I've met her father several times. He's real. I mean, I can see how she turned out to be so damaged. But he's not been in her life. He's just only recently come back, and I see that there's so many similarities there. It's kind of, just proves my point, my theory. So I don't want to be a sad person. I don't want to be a failure in life. That's why I want to change.
The majority of our talk today, and maybe last time too, it was a little bit dark.
Yeah.
And we're focusing on
Well,
sad things.
I
But you
don't want the
like,
darkness to eclipse.
but you don't seem like a sad person.
I think I try to put on a happy face if I can. But I think circumstances make a big difference with me. I mean, I'd be happier if I had a better place to live and more money and all the things that people want out of life. But that's where I am today in my journey of trying to make the most of the time I have. People that are not still with me anymore died young, they died fast, they lived hard and partied, and they wanted to be fabulous all the way to the end. I felt that way too when I was in my 20s.
You are. Look at you.
Fierce and fabulous. Fierce and fabulous over 50.
Who's going to tell you you're not fabulous?
Well, that's one thing that's one aspect now is like dressing up and being in drag was never as acceptable as it is now. I mean, kids now are doing it, but 20 years ago or more, there was no RuPaul's Drag Race or any of that stuff. So she's done a lot to make the whole world, or he, whatever her pronoun, she probably uses the he pronoun, but
Who's that?
RuPaul's Drag Race.
Oh, right.
You know, all these things that have just turned, like drag queens have become a very mainstream sort of thing. So I guess that can be fun.
Our world has changed a lot.
Yeah, I think the things that are considered normal now would be shocking and terrifying 50, 100 years ago.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of younger people have no sense of history. Somebody mentioned the Twinkie defense a couple of days ago, and everybody else there was so young they had no idea what that was, and I was the only one who knew. And of course, the Twinkie defense is the Dan White, who shot Harvey Milk and George Moscone, claimed that he was eating too many Twinkies, and that's why he went off the deep end and he killed Moscone and Milk. So, but all that, I mean, that was a pretty pivotal part of history, but it's forgotten now. Hell, even a lot of young kids have forgotten 9/11, which I thought was one of the biggest things in the century. But there's too much. I think there's too much other news, too much Kardashian information.
Society marches on.
The priorities have changed.
History gets forgotten.
And I think that's why we're seeing a lot more unhappy youth. I think maybe they probably see an image of an unattainable world for like people that are showing off. Look at me on my exciting cruise, drinking the finest champagne and dressed to the so you feel like that could never be you. I could never live up to that. So it's discouraging. Because I feel that way. I mean, I felt that way before we ever had social media. I know I have an inclination for jealousy.
Now everyone gets to see everyone else's life.
Yeah. It's almost like everyone has a publicist or, like a studio. An imagist maybe is the term.
Yeah, maybe people that lived in poverty never knew what the ultra rich lived like, and vice versa.
Yeah, they had no.
Vice versa.
They might see a movie about it or something like that, but they don't see people that are flexing and showing off and all that sort of stuff. So
it's an interesting time.
Yeah, it's interesting to me to think about where it will lead us, where it will go, because the things that happen now happen so quickly. You might remember some of the stories about like these children that become TikTok stars, and then they end up killing themselves when they're not even legal drinking age yet. That's happened more than once. It just escalates and snowballs. So, like when you do something online now, it gets seen so quickly by so many people, and it's actually very simple stuff too. A guy riding a skateboard, drinking juice. It's not if somehow that connected and it turned into a big thing and he became famous. But
things happen very, very quickly now.
Yeah, you can become a meme.
and trends come and go.
Yeah.
I suspect being ultra rich and flashing it on social media and all that will become uncool in the next 5-10 years.
I think it's kind of that way now. I mean, I think there's a lot of resentment, especially people that are like me, who are really suffering financially. I mean,
it's really gross to watch.
Well, and you think about the price of my gas. I almost didn't make it here today, et cetera. That kind of thing.
It's embarrassing to look at some of these people doing that, and it's like they're so out of touch. And
it's exactly like the old Marie Antoinette, let them eat cake kind of attitude. If people even know who that is anymore, but that just a complete disconnect and a distaste for the poor.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that we start to see each other as more equal.
Well, that would be ideal. It might be a little bit cockeyed optimism, but I mean, I think people have lived this way for such a long time that it's really difficult to make that transition. For if people are suddenly asked to pay a huge higher amount of taxes, they're going to balk at that.
Yeah, of course.
But in other countries, where they do pay a higher tax, they get more out of it too. I think they have better social welfare, less I can't, maybe Calcutta, but like what other country can compare to America with our homeless population? I mean, it's
pretty embarrassing.
It's unequal. I mean, especially in an industrialized, a city like this that's got so much wealth. That's just. But the further we get apart from each other, the more
Likes to call itself the greatest country in the world.
Yeah, precisely. Well, it's like a whole bunch of different other countries, California is kind of like a whole country all on its own.
Yeah, it is.
Even San Bernardino is trying to secede from the state. So, I live in San Bernardino County now. Yeah, so you still see your Trump trucks driving around waving their flags.
Is that right?
Yeah. It's Southern California too. I've seen them in Southern California. There's the Trump rallies. I think, is it Loma Linda? Or is that where the Nixon Library is? I happened to be driving through there one day and there was a big Trump rally. I thought, wow, I guess this is Republican country, but you don't expect to see that. I feel like it's more of the deep South, Mississippi, Alabama kind of thing, not California.
No, California gets pretty redneck as you go inland.
Oh yeah, for sure. So, I think everybody who doesn't know it thinks of L.A., Hollywood, maybe San Francisco, but there's a lot more between those two places. So.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, Pippi, thank you so much for coming back.
Thank you for inviting me back.
You're always fun to talk to.
You are too. You have a great demeanor. I mean, you have such a casual, I don't know, a soft voice. Have you been on the radio?
No.
You have a pleasing voice.
Oh, thank you. No, I just find everyone interesting.
People are.
Especially you, but everybody.
Well, I thank you so much. I'm very pleased to be back.
Yeah, we'll have you in again.
Okay.
Maybe you'll be somebody different next time.
Yeah. We'll see if I can get Lady Sham to come with me.
Oh yeah, we could do that. She's great too.
She's off on her adventures right now. She's working with some video guy. I don't know if they're probably making porn. But
Oh God.
we'll see. She'll let me know.